Welcome to another edition of Real Talk with Dean Blamas. We're here with Livian Chicagoland. I'll let them introduce themselves as we go down.
I'm Kelly Bowenzi, co-CEO and team agent with Livian Chicagoland.
I'm Gabby Rostelli. I'm a newer agent with Livian Chicagoland and KW.
I'm Joe Zimmerman. I'm a co-CEO with Kelly Bowenzi of Livian Chicagoland and the operating principal of Keller Williams One Chicago.
And Joe Zimmerman's been around maybe longer than me, as a legend in the industry, so that goes without saying, so I wanted to throw that in there. So the concept with Livian, from what I understand, is, you want your agents out there doing what they do best, selling. So you kind of help them with the little things. And being in sales, as long as I have, that's an intriguing concept. Can you let us know a little about what the whole concept of Livian is? So.
Yeah, obviously the truth is that the industry's changed, right? And real estate will never be sold like it was prior to when I got into the business in 2001. And what is happening out there is that the consumer is demanding a certain level of service. And when you look at the traditional real estate brokerage model, it's really broken, to be honest with you, because one person cannot give the level of service that the consumer is demanding. So where Livian comes in is it's a partnership. All right, and it's a partnership that really allows our agents to focus on their 20% that will yield 80% of the results. And what does that mean is Gabby's role as an agent on the team is to go out there, shake hands, kiss babies, show properties, negotiate contracts, and close deals.
Right.
But how is she going to do everything else if she doesn't have support?
Right. There's
just not enough time in the day. So what Livian does is they come in and partner with top producing teams to help scale the business and focus on agent production.
That seems so common sense, but for someone who's been doing this in the mortgage side, it's the same thing I think you said once. No one owns a restaurant and cooks their own meals either, but
right.
for the first 15 years in our industry, that's all I had to do, take a loan application, do all the work myself, and there was pushback. It was the same way in your industry, and you kind of think, how didn't anyone think of this anytime sooner? Because it just makes sense, right?
Yeah, and Dean, what I would say is that it's all timing, right? Commission suppression's a thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's going on. And at the end of the day, really where it's driving from is the value, again, that the consumer is demanding, right? Now with everything that's going on with the NAR lawsuits and the amount of money, commissions that need to be exposed and obviously are being looked at all the time, the consumer is going to demand a certain level of service for that,
right.
Period. And they should, rightfully so. So that's where Livian steps in and says, hey, instead of building all of these intricacies and all these systems and playbooks, we have them for you. So why don't we partner up together and help scale your business with always the focus being on agent productivity and giving a great client customer experience so that we can go out there and serve more homes.
So you're a new agent coming into this model. If you remember years past, you would have someone, how do I start out? Well, there's your desk, go make cold calls, right? And do all the work yourself. I would imagine that's different now with this type of model, right? For someone like you.
Yeah, so it's been super interesting for me because going into this industry, the whole idea of what encompasses a real estate agent in their day-to-day seems really daunting. There's a lot of paperwork and behind the scenes that there's no playbook for. And so going into Livian, I had the coaching behind me of Kelly and Joe and kind of the baseline to go off of what your day-to-day should look like and how to be successful. And I don't have to worry about the marketing and the paperwork and the how-tos on everything as it's done for us.
So I picture you just sitting back on the desk, maybe you smoke a cigar and you're just telling people what to do.
Totally.
Right? Type of thing. Yeah.
That's my day-to-day.
Oh, I want that life. Goodness.
So actually, to both of those points, I would say what I think the beauty of the partnership between Livian and our team through Keller Williams and the partnership between Joe and Gabby and myself, I started in real estate in the admin portion of it. So I worked behind the scenes and I know all of the work that goes into the back end of the business, right? So the people behind the scenes that are our heroes and allow us to focus on production. I started as an admin in real estate. So I am very empathetic towards the people that are constantly working on our behalf to take care of all the stuff behind the scenes. And then I gradually went into sales.
That's a tough transition because salespeople are like type A personalities usually, right? So when I've been to the company and say, look at this technology, okay, what do you want me to do with it? I don't know how to do anything. But if you have to deal with that, that goes back to when a realtor had to do a real estate agent. That's trademarked, right? I have to be careful how I use that. So how you have to do all that stuff. Look at all the technology we can offer you, but if you don't know how to use it, what good does it do you? But if you have the admin saying, this is what we tell us what you want, and this is how we can help you fill in these gaps for marketing, fill in this gap, that's a big deal. And coming from our industry where it took ages for the mortgage industry to come around, I'd imagine it seems revolutionary, but it seems common sense too. why it took so long to come around to something like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, timing's everything, right? And the technology revolution is here, right? It's changed a bit. It's changed business, how it changes how we communicate with people in general, right? And it's changed this business significantly. So at the end of the day, the way that we're going, the reason the partnership with Livian works is that they're trailblazers. They're ahead of it, right? And we're also curating an environment where we are always talking with top producing agents all across the country. Right. So somebody that might be in California or New York and be using a tool technology-wise, and we're getting it shared with us here in Chicago for the first time, it's beneficial, right? So again, part of the culture of Livian is helping and sharing with each other, so that obviously we all can help scale each other's businesses at the highest level.
So I've never worked in an industry where it's scrutinized what we make. Even in our industry, back when the industry crashed, that we had the issues in 2008 or 9, what mortgage brokers made was a big deal. I've had people say, I've got texts from people, it's a good thing, the lawsuit. I had to pay so-and-so this much for just bringing a buyer to my house. And I realize in this day and age of a soundbite, to explain what an agent does for a client is 10 minutes, so it doesn't sell on the news, it's not immediate, but a soundbite, like what he just said on the text, all they did was show my house and I had to pay them this much money. It's challenging because we have to defend what we do or show value to what we do. I always say it matters who you work with, because in this day and age with technology, you have the online lenders and you have the discount brokers. I think you get what you pay for. So in this, when you're providing all these services, this is something you let the people you work with, that there's value to what we bring, I would imagine.
Sure, absolutely. I agree. I think that it is a good thing, but not on that side of the coin. I think it's a good thing for the industry. I think that the exposure and the transparency of what we do make and the value that we do bring, it should be transparent, right? So again, I talked earlier that this industry has been sold the same way for a very long time, and it was a broken model and it was archaic. So I think that this is the opportunity for real estate agents to level their game up with a level of professionalism that they've never had to give before.
Right, yeah.
And then therefore, I think on the other side of this, and when you level your game up, the people who do survive in this, it's going to become very fruitful for them.
That makes sense, right? So as mentioned, this is Joe Zimmerman. He's been around since 2001. I remember back when developments were a big deal in Chicago. That's when you were, correct me if I'm wrong, you were probably the biggest agent in the city at the time?
Yeah. I was representing
the biggest agent in Chicago. That's a big city. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, but I was fortunate enough to be representing high-rise developers at the time with the company that I was with. So at one point in time, I was in charge of 5 different developments, and I had 32 sales agents under my belt in 2005.
That's a big deal then. So,
Yeah.
and then with that, then you just built your business. From there, how did you segue into the different aspects of business then?
Well, really, I was forced into it, to be honest with you, Dean, because at the end of the day, the writing was on the wall of what was going to happen.
Right.
So when being in a sales center on Saturdays and Sundays from 12 to 4, you got a very good pulse on what was going on with the market, meaning how many people were coming in and looking at condos.
You saw that dwindling down.
Right, and you were tracking the numbers, right?
Wow.
Just like our real estate business now, we're big on tracking numbers because there's patterns, right? There's themes in everything that you do. So when you track your numbers, you know exactly really kind of what's going to happen, right? So in that realm in 2005, when there was 30 people walking into a sales center, and and about 20 of them were writing contracts, and then it dwindled down to about 10, and then 0, and then it was 30 people were coming back, and they were basically giving the contracts back and saying we weren't going to be closing. So you were seeing what was going on, and that's why just like Livian and having a national exposure to that is also so important for our businesses, is because we track every single number that we're doing. So when you look at this as a real estate agent, if you're not tracking your numbers, I always tell people all the time, basically what you're doing is playing pin the tail on the donkey as a kid, right? If you don't know how many appointments you need to set to get to your end result goal of profit, then you're just basically going into the business blindfolded.
But during that time, before 2000, whatever that 7, you didn't have to do anything because it was just so busy. I remember everyone was a developer. Like, everyone wanted, I'm buying this for you. We're going to flip it and make a ton of money. Everyone, that was the thing to do.
Correct.
Until some people got caught off guard. You got caught off guard for that. So
yeah, and to be fair, you didn't have to run your business, as a real estate agent.
That was the thing. You didn't have to plan anything.
Yeah.
Just the business was coming.
The business was coming. So again, with the NAR lawsuit and basically what the consumer is demanding now, and the commission suppression, all the things that we've talked about so far, we're being forced into really sort of a professional / corporate type of environment.
So what do you worry about then if you bring value? There's nothing to worry about if you bring value to what you do.
If you bring value, there's nothing to worry about.
An interesting concept. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the team. I'm going to go back to the team now. Yeah. So you want to talk about this? You're based in the so
sure.
You're part of the Livian team, but you mentioned earlier you do most of your work in the suburbs then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So our team.
So we dragged you down here today. Then,
yeah.
Right?
No.
Yeah. So.
No, I do enjoy still coming to the city just so I can see face to face with my team and everyone else, and you, Dean.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
But yeah, we're called Livian Chicagoland because we do cover the greater Chicagoland area.
Right.
So there are agents on our team that master certain areas, and Joe and Gabby, Tara, and Scott are in the city, and then Devin is an agent on our team who's on more South Chicago, and I tackle the western suburbs.
So you cover almost everything then. There's no issue. That's a good thing then, right? So,
yeah.
Because a lot of times you'll see agents will have to refer this out to the suburbs, and even the North Shore.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. We have relationships in the North Shore and agents there as well.
Okay. And you mentioned you're a newer agent though, right? But I'd imagine the support you've gotten has made it that segue into that, because it seems like a daunting task going to a new industry. I remember and we can edit this out, but when I left the trading floor to get in the mortgage industry, I sat at a desk. I don't know anyone. I'm an introvert. How am I going to get people to give me a loan? How do you start? Because that's how it was. You're on your own. But starting, I'm going to start over so we can get into you. But starting on your own, you have that support that gives you even the confidence, right? Because I know you said information in meetings. We were talking before. During the lockdown, when you were isolated, things were busy. But after that, working from home and isolated, I started to think, my goodness, my brain was going to mush. I just need to get out to have interaction. And when I'd come to some of your meetings, I love that information. So I'd imagine whether you realize or not, that's a huge plus for you starting out in this business, I would think, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say we have team meetings in the mornings, and we go over the tasks of our day and kind of ask for advice on different issues that we're having. And I think going into the office and talking with the team and talking with different members of KW has been super instrumental for me. I feel like a lot of times when you have a question, it can seem, again, really daunting to call someone up and say, hey, this is a really quick question, but our team is super supportive, and having a bunch of agents at the KW office too to just turn to and ask has been
And there's
great
no such
for my
thing as a
business.
dumb question, because that's how you
Exactly,
learn.
yeah.
Right? I mean, we've all been there before. That's the whole point. Just have that interaction is helpful. I even say, I've been doing this over 20 years, that I want to hear what the younger people are doing, just to get ideas that way, because you're used to doing, my AOL email doesn't work anymore in today's day. I don't have it anymore, but that's when I had in the 90s, AOL was revolutionary, but you realize how things change. Remember, we worked with fax machines, and if you wanted to get a phone call, a BlackBerry was revolutionary, but you had to be in the office to get phone calls. If you're not, you had to. So now, just hearing from the young people, that feedback's a big deal, I think. I'm
still in a MySpace account, and see where I think
I forgot about that. Yeah.
But going to like the Gabby's success is Gabby is a person that's walked into this business and basically just said, I understand that the path is in the math. Right? We have our mentorship to her of saying, hey, listen, not only is the answer in the data, but the path is in the math. So it's very easy to sit down and say, hey, how much money do you want to make in this? Or how much volume? Or how many homes do you want to sell? Like, what's your driving force? And then going through the metrics on what has to happen for that to take place. So again, the path is in the map.
So it's a map. This is
it's
what
a
you
math
have to
problem.
get there.
Yeah. At the end of the day, this is a giant math problem.
Yeah.
What I don't think a lot of real estate agents recognize is that we're just living a giant math problem. Whatever activities you're doing that yields into X amount of results, being your main focus being appointments. So we have a slogan called Do the Two. So we know that if Gabby sets 2 appointments a week and takes 1 week off a quarter, so works 48 weeks, right? And she sets 2 appointments a week, she's going to sell north of 36 homes with her conversion rates.
Okay.
So how
that's
many
just math,
people,
like you said.
That's just math. It's just math. At the end of the day, it's like, when Gary Keller wrote the book in 2002, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, he changed the industry forever. I mean, he really did, because he taught people how to scale the business, and he taught you basically that these 4 models, when you follow it, you can build whatever business that you want, how big or small you want to do it, but you have to follow a plan. In the plan, whatever plan you follow, so be it. At least you're following something.
You follow something,
but our plan is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, right? And really kind of having the 4 conversations of how many appointments are we setting? How many are we going on? How many are we signing? And how many are we closing?
But that can work, like in my case, right?
Absolutely.
Because if my referral source are realtors, right? And we were talking back in 2000, everyone was in the office, so I would just crash offices all the time.
Yeah.
And now it's different because everyone works remotely, so I have to get on the phone, because I'm actually interested, so we don't do business. So, but it's a fact. I've been to all these different offices. I was in Jameson forever.
Yeah.
This will get edited out, but they would do all their in-house coaching type of thing.
Yeah.
But it was just, and there's so many books out there, how to do that.
Right.
But this is a map like someone can write out that they can wrap their arms around. Let me get there because I want to use it. So this concept, the millionaire real estate, there's all these self-help books. Of course, I remember reading in the 90s, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, but that's a concept, a mindset.
Correct.
But this is something they can wrap their arms around, because if you're new, it's daunting, like, what am I supposed to do? Here's what I can do. It's a map, right? Like to get out there. So it's different than those other self-help type of things, right?
The beautiful thing about the millionaire real estate agent is a playbook. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what's
playbook,
different.
right,
It's a playbook, and if you played sports or you were in a theater or whatever you were in when you were growing up, you had a playbook, whatever it was, and you just made reference. You said, well, I can use this in my business too. Really, when you dive deep into this, you can build whatever business you want on just these activities, on the principles of what the millionaire real estate agent, what's in there, right? So at the end of the day, that's the beautiful thing about this is no matter what plan you're following, you have to follow a plan.
Right.
And we just happen to adapt to following the most successful plan.
Right.
That is proven.
Like the top producers, they all have that trait, that driving trait, however they got there. And at the end of the day, they say, oh, you're kind of doing the same thing but a different way. But I think this is invaluable for someone who's new. I buy books all the time to read or
Correct.
something,
And the great thing about the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, is it does start with mindset, right? If you look at the top of that book, it says, think $1 million, right? Then gross $1 million, then net $1 million, then give $1 million. But he is very clear in the beginning of that book that if you don't think you can do this, you're already done.
Yeah.
You better set your mindset to be able to know that you can do whatever you want by following this plan. And if you don't think it, no, why are you even showing up?
And that mindset's important. I remember, especially with the admin support, because I remember doing this. I was saying before, around 2015, it's like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be spending time calling up Corner Bakery or a Broker's Open. I can spend my time better. Until I did that, and then I go, where do I want my business? So I started thinking of a number. Okay, this is what I've done consistently, but I got to get over that hump to that next level. It was that concept to think about that. But then creating that team, I had to do it myself. I didn't have a company to actually do it at the time. So, so does that help you recruiting at all?
Yeah, what I would add to that, Dean, is that there's one truth in life, right? Is that we all have 24 hours in a day, and how you are going to spend those 24 hours is going to be basically going to be based on, is going to give you the result that you want. So, in our world, right, in the real estate world, there's a lot of people who just do stuff. Right, and respectfully, I'm not discouraging or like whatever. But at the end of the day, what's the highest ROI on the activity that they're doing? Right. So the world has changed, right? So when we were out there, and you've been in the business, as long as I have, or almost close to, that was completely different than what Gabby and now what Kelly are doing, or even I'm doing now. TikTok wasn't around, or Facebook wasn't around, or Instagram wasn't around. So it was like I had a joke with somebody the other day. I was like, yeah, I had to actually stuff envelopes. Right? It wasn't, it wasn't like the postcards just weren't sent out for you or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Kelly actually started as an admin with me, and she would stuff envelopes. So again, all of these changes have been a good thing, but you're right. What are you going to do and what's your mindset around it is the most important decision that you can make.
I think to that point too, the beauty of the partnership of what Livian provides our team and our agents. Joe and I's goal, obviously as CEOs, is always to increase our agents' production. Who doesn't want to sell more homes and make more money, as long as you're doing it by working smarter, not necessarily harder, because you have coaches that are holding you accountable for the activities you have to do. And Joe and I are constantly preaching to our team that you can get there with the right people, systems, and tools in place. And with the right people, we're coaching, we're holding them accountable to what they need to do. And with our awesome administrative staff, we have people that are focused on the systems and tools to get them there.
That's a big deal. Yeah, that's a big deal. So I imagine that makes your situation a lot easier too than when you're out there selling, right? So because you're not, oh goodness, I have to go back and do all this work and it takes a lot of time.
And learn all of those systems as well.
So with the coaching then, the Livian's a network all nationwide then, so it's not just you coaching. Is it just? I mean, it's a network throughout the country.
So Joe
then.
is coaching the agents on our team
On your team,
specifically.
correct, right.
So actually, newer agents like Gabby will come to me first. So if they're
Okay.
newer into the business, because I have that administrative background, and there's a lot of places to start and look when you're first starting in the business, and it's very overwhelming.
Right.
You're starting with the new brokerage. You're starting with the new
Yeah.
team. It's like, what class do I attend first? And there was a lot of that confusion, and it can be overwhelming. So I'm there for the first 90 days to kind of coach them to a point where I feel like we can let them spread their wings, let our butterflies go, and then they are producing and they're with Joe coaching. But I am also getting coached on a higher level, and Joe is also meeting with leadership all the time and in great masterminds and getting coached as well.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking of when I got into business in June of 2000, so going on 24 years. And when I have a simple question that may be simple today that I didn't know the answer, what's an RM mortgage? Yeah, interesting. Well, let me just check. I'm going to check with the lender and I'll get back to you. Like I didn't know.
Right.
And what I back then there was no support. So I mean, as nervous as you were, I can imagine being new that you have that resource has got to be monumental for you in the business, and it's a great resource.
I mean, I remember same thing. I remember driving around the city in 2001 and not knowing where I was going and not having GPS on my phone or in my car.
Goodness.
Right, and having to be
Imagine life like that.
yeah,
The stress
and
of
having to
being
be
on time.
and having to be on time.
Yeah.
And then walking in there and somebody saying, "Does this have granite countertops?" and not knowing what granite countertops were,
Right,
at the time. But you did it, and you figured it out because we were out there and we were active,
Yes.
right?
You did it. You made
we
it
were
work.
active and we made it work, right? So the goal is not to know everything, right? It's just actually just to give a great, be yourself, be authentic, but also just get the level of service to where it needs to be, period.
Right.
That's just it.
Did that help you? Because, and this is on the side, because we were doing this so long that I did everything. Like I automated. Did it help you because you knew how to do everything, or did it hold you back, do you think? Because I would love to have started off when I had the support.
If I look back at the history of my career, if I knew that it was like, that there was a system and there was a process out there and I had leverage prior to, and that I didn't have to do anything, I would have leveraged it right away. Now knowing what I know now.
I just remember like in 2002 walking in the office and I had a stack of loan applications and all I did is spend 8 hours on a Saturday filling them out by hand. I go, well, this is not getting me any new business or anything like that.
Right.
But that's what we worked in back in the day type of thing. So interesting. So as you mentioned, Gabby, what's your focus on the team? What is your role in the team?
Yeah, so starting off, obviously my sphere is in their early 20s and a lot of people are moving to the city, so I focused on rentals primarily for my first couple months, learning the city, learning the market, learning how to be a real estate agent in the sphere of rentals and with my sphere of influence, which was a lot easier than going out cold calling and meeting a bunch of random people. And then once I mastered that, I've kind of learned to, I'm stepping into the realm of condos and first-time home buyers, which is kind of where my main focus is going to be primarily, or going forward, sorry.
Right. That's a big deal, though. I mean, because from the lockdown where everyone's at 3% and under, most of my business now is first-time home buyers, which is a good thing because they don't have to focus on, I don't have that rate that I had during the lockdown, but it seems to be a big portion of our business at least. So that's good. So are you converting renters to home buyers, or how does that work?
Yeah, obviously in the long run, that's my goal. Just get myself out there and let my sphere know that I'm in real estate and create those connections on the back end and then keep in touch with them. And we have a...
Can I ask how you do that? Because I did it by postcards and stuff.
Totally. So something our team's really big on is a 36 touch. And 36 touch, I know Joe could probably touch on this more, exactly what it means, but you're touching your sphere of influence, your clients, past clients, future clients, 36 times a year to keep yourself top of mind. So what that can mean is just checking in monthly. I know something that's great about Livian is a lot of those touches are done for us on the back end.
Okay.
We have weekly emails that get sent out, quarterly emails, we have events, we have giveaways. So a lot of that's done on the back end for us. That's not something I have to spend my time focusing on and brainstorming creative new ideas to touch my database.
That's good.
And Dean, here's why Gabby's going to be successful, right? Is at the end of the day, she has came in here with a mindset that there's one job of her to do, and that is to go out there and talk to people, right? And that is our job, right? So servicing the real estate needs is one aspect of it, but she also has done a very good job of time blocking her time and doing the activities. So contacting people. What Gabby has learned early on is that she has a fiduciary responsibility to this industry to talk to people, right? So these people who are not talking to people
Right.
because you're doing a disservice to your people. There are stats out there right now that, and I believe, don't quote me, don't quote me like perfectly on this, but I believe that the latest stat out there was when they polled a bunch of people and said, how many of you want your realtor to call you to tell you some information?
Right.
It was north of 80%.
So it's still
Right.
that human touch. That's
Yeah.
the term I coined a long time ago. Just pick up the phone. I tell my clients that you're going to be a lot of emails. My team will email. Just pick up the phone and call me, or I'll call. It helps.
This is the largest purchase or sale of their lives, right? Think about that.
Yeah.
The largest purchase or sales of their lives, and people are texting information or emailing something information.
Right.
I don't know about you, but if I was not in this industry and I wanted my real estate agent to be professional, I want him to call me and tell me when something's up.
Yeah, I remember when I was first in the industry, and I got a call, and I called someone back right away, and it was a realtor, whoever it was, in 2001, whatever. He goes, "Oh, a mortgage broker actually picks up the phone or calls back." Click. Okay, I knew what my competition was. I knew at the time I had no business. I knew what the producers were doing. I go, okay, just make sure I'll drop everything. And if I had back then, you had voice messages at the office. That was religious about calling them back, and that's the same thing. Just you talking to someone. So
you come from the same, you come from the same school though, right?
Right.
It's like at the end of the day, I don't know how many times right now that we pick up our phones,
Right.
and how many times that I pick up the phone and somebody says, "Oh, thank you so much for picking up."
Right.
Right? It's like it's not that hard.
So there is that technology that makes, as we talked about, but there's value to what we do. The people, it is a big purchase. So you have to, there's a happy medium with technology with still giving that personal service, I think, is what's out there. In our industry, everything's online. You don't have to talk to anyone, or here's the keys to a house. You don't have to do anything in your industry. But I just think that above and beyond is still something that's very valuable and very valuable in the industry, I would think. So but you mentioned what events and all that, and the 36 touch, and it's done for you. Again, the first thing I thought of was having events back in the 2000s when I started and doing all the work myself, invitations. So I'm harping on, but it just seems like an incredible resource for you for success is what it seems like. That it's something that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
So.
I think also 36 is like the minimum amount of times you need to contact someone, and that's why they call it that. So it's 36 touch, but in fact, I think our outreach is north
70.
of 40 something.
Yeah, it's almost
times.
70. Because if you think about it, the events, if you were a newer and you wanted to go build a massive business, you do it around events.
Right.
And why? Because the path is in the math, as I've said before. Each event you can do 4 to 5 touches. So if
Right.
you do one event a month, and let's get very clear on an event. That doesn't mean you have to have a party.
Right, what
and
is
you
that?
have to have like
Specify.
whatever. Yeah, I mean it's a call to action event. So an event can be, hey, I'm raffling off this gift card. But what do you get to do? You get to email them. You get to text them,
they're
you
all
get to
touches.
call them,
Yeah, okay.
then you get to do the event, then you get to thank them for participating in the event. There's 5 touches right there.
Mm-hmm.
So you are top of mind all the time if you could do an event every single month.
That's interesting. Because postcards was a big deal for me, but how expensive they are. So I started doing to my past client database an email video, or just an email type of what's going on. And one of the, and again, we don't have to use this. I talked about how in college I blew off my study for my calculus test to go to a frat party, and I got a D. But the good thing is I'm still not using calculus and mortgages. And I said, if you've read this, just please reply, I read it, and I'll send you a gift, because I wanted to see who's reading it. And thank you for not writing that stupid market update, and I read it. So I sent about 30 brownies out to these people. So and that's the concept. It was a touch. You got to think of a different way to kind of touch them, type of thing.
Well,
So.
what you did in that, which is brilliant, is you did a call to action.
Right.
So at the end of the day, anything marketing that you're putting
Call
out
to
there,
action, right, okay.
yeah, it has to be local, it has to be personal, and there has to be a call to action. So scan this QR code for your free X, or if you want a free market analysis, call this number.
There you go.
Whatever it is, but there has to be some sort of call to action so you know what the ROI on that marketing piece is.
And that's another concept of what you're doing then. But it's just 70, so you're up to 70 type of thing. But it's just staying in front of people then, right, is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
Amazon has perfected this, right?
Yeah.
How many times does Amazon touch us a day?
Yeah.
And nobody's saying, hey, Amazon, stop touching us.
Correct. Right.
Right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
And we just did a giveaway too, and I don't know to quote the exact numbers either, but we just had a national Livian contest where we were giving away Taylor Swift tickets in Miami.
Really? Okay.
And what the goal of that was to do what we call a reverse bold 100. So we wanted 100 people to call us by giving this away. I mean, we didn't quite reach the 100 calls, but Joe set how many appointments?
There you go.
Yeah.
Just from that.
And I had, I think, 6 or 7 referrals. So people who called in and were able to give me a referral for somebody who would potentially sell real estate in the next 12 months.
Really?
So just even engaging with them and
Right.
having those types
But that's
of
outside
things.
the box. That's why
Yeah.
I try to think all the time, like the dumb newsletter about calculus, rather than here's the market update. I'm trying to think differently, and that's what that was too, just a reason to reach out.
But the fundamentals is not outside the box.
Okay,
Right?
right,
It's
yeah.
an offering that might have been outside of the box, but
Yeah.
it's what everyone's talking about right now, right? Is Taylor Swift.
Right.
So that was the trigger, that was the bait that got people to say, oh my God, I can get Taylor Swift tickets. And all I have to do is the call to action. So that, again, the fundamentals of, hey, we're going to market something with a call to action. And what the call to action was call Kelly or I during this time, and we get to ask you one question.
Well, that's it.
And the one question is, do you know anyone that's interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate in the next 12 months?
Great call to action.
Yeah.
There you go.
Super
There you
simple.
are.
Yeah, that's a great concept, but it worked then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, when I say outside the box, it's not here's my newsletter with
Sure.
market updates
Right.
type of thing. That's
Yeah.
what I meant. Thinking
It's
differently,
fun
yeah.
too. It's
Right.
fun. It gives our
Yeah.
agents something to talk about with their clients.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel like you're just calling to check in. There's so many times you just be like, hey, I'm just thinking about you. I'm calling to check in.
But this was a national thing that we talked about for support. I'd imagine that if you had to do it by yourself, it's a tough sell. So that's what we're talking about. The Livian concept is what I'm.
So the beautiful thing about the Livian is they track their hours too, right? So putting this stuff together, they track how much manpower and they track how many hours this manpower has to do and put into the work to get this off the ground. And it was north of 9 people, right? And 130 hours to get this off of the ground.
Okay.
So again, it's an unfair advantage that we have because we have the support of our partnership with Livian that they will allow us to go and do that, right? Or they'll do that for us,
Right.
so that will allow us to focus on our 20%, which is talking to people.
Well, that's a huge deal. As I'm thinking about that, it's a huge advantage, I think, because you have that. Like you had people calling, and you got the appointments off of that. Okay, so the big thing in Chicago, at least, is there's a lot of teams. Everyone has a big team. They promote that. So, what's the advantage of Livian if someone comes to you with a team saying, "Well, we're already self-sufficient"? Well, how can you help a team like that? What's the advantage of that?
So I would say just from in my short time of owning a team with Joe, the ins and outs of your administrative staff is daunting, right? So they're constantly evolving, and the goal is you want to set them up for success as well. You want people to stay with your team. You want to build that rapport and the culture of your team and keep people around, And there's a lot of teams out there, so people could bounce around. But with Livian, there's so much more that's offered to our administrative staff. They have benefits, and they work with a culture that keeps them on their toes and learning more about what the new systems and tools are coming out.
And the concierge you mentioned before, what was that?
So the concierge is like a higher level. So if a team were to come in with multiple agents, you have what's called a success manager, and that person is who introduces you to all of your lead individual representatives from all of the different departments of like marketing, finance, all of the
It's
different.
concierge, exactly what it sounds
exactly
like.
what
Exactly
it
what it is, yeah.
The other thing I would add to that, though, Dean, is be very careful when you're out there, meaning the consumers that are listening to this or the agents that are listening to this, of defining yourself as a team. Are you a team or are you a glob of individuals, right? Because a team has a mission, a team has a vision, and team has standards, right? So, and they also have lanes of, hey, I am doing this, so my job is to do this. So the reason that Gabby is coming out of the gates, not only because she's super driven, right? And she has all the personal attributes that's going to make her super successful in this business, but also she has a lane. She understands that her job is to go out there and produce, not look at the marketing, right? Not look at the transaction management. That's all taken care of. So again, going back to all of this and kind of tying this up in a bow here is that if you really truly embrace that our industry is becoming more corporate-like, and I don't like the word corporate
but I know
either,
what you're saying.
but you know what I'm saying.
More
That's
accountable,
like
I guess.
more accountable.
Yeah, right.
That it's like, hey, your job is this. If you go back to the examples that we were talking about in a play or growing up in sports, like the point guard didn't play center
Right.
in the basketball team, right? This is the same concept with business. So at the end of the day, the admin and the operations people, they're going to do the operation, and they're going to give the operational side, and they're going to give the client a great customer experience from that side of it. Now, what's different about Livian compared to some teams in the Chicagoland or across the nation is those people now have support. So imagine having a bench of people to support the operational people.
Yes.
That's what the partnership does. Because again, some of these operational people, they're super talented, right? But they also only have 24 hours in a day.
Right.
So they can only get to so much. And as CEOs or rainmakers, you come in like a seagull and you're like, I know you're working on that, but I want you to work on this. And you just drop a bunch of stuff on them and then you go away
gone,
again, right? And these operational people are getting super stressed out, right? Rightfully so. So now in a partnership with Livian is they can go to Livian and say, I need help with this, right? I can't be focusing on this. It's not in my 20%. Can you help me with that? And then they come in and take over.
Not a glob, like you said. I don't think you're being derogatory. It's a glob of people, but the teams are basically on their own. The concept of it is the team's on their own. Going outside of it, here you have here's a team of all these people, and the support right under it too for anything they may need.
The other thing is too that's super important is that the support that our admin is getting from Livian, they're getting support for the people that have built out and literally created and invented the systems we're using. Right. So it's coming from the people that have literally written the playbook on how to use these systems and tools. The creators of it are the ones that are now teaching and providing support to our admin.
Well, when you say playbook, that's important. I remember like 7 or 8 years into the industry, I had to give a talk about how I achieved what I achieved. And I wrote down my first thing when I had to write down my outline, I just did it. Because I didn't have anything, I just did it. It would have been great. So a playbook like this, scripted out, is incredibly helpful for someone. Because I just think how overbearing any new industry is, and I just needed something to wrap my arms around. And back then I was database management and a CRM is what I needed. That's the only concept I could, and I had to touch once a month. That's all I was thinking of. Every month I can touch someone, and that's what it was. So
that's what's really exciting about this industry. If you think about the way that real estate was being sold in the 80s compared to the 90s and then the 2000s, and remember 2002, the book came out, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Yeah. How do you scale the business compared to where we are today?
I wish I would have read that in 2002 because I could have used it in the mortgage industry easily.
Right, absolutely. So, again, it's a business book. It's not a real estate agent book. That title's there, but it's a business book. Mm-hmm. So how do you run a business? So where is this going to be in 2035 and 2045, right? I mean, it's super exciting of the evolution of where we've come from compared to in the 90s, or in the early 2000s of, a single agent selling 12 to 14 homes, and that was really it, right? Now you have some of these teams, true teams, that are corporations. They're corporations that would be on the New York Stock Exchange, and some of them are going public, right? Some of these platforms are going public. So at the end of the day, we're at an opportunity of time in this industry where, again, the other side of this is going to become very fruitful for people who basically, master the basics, follow a plan, and understand that the path is in the math, right? And that if they follow something, they're going to scale a business that is going to be very fruitful for generations.
That's an interesting concept. So what do you think the future of the industry is?
I think that personally, I think that this isn't me pontificating my opinion. This is giving facts, right? Is that we have lived in a very independent contractor environment for a very long time. Right. And the people who understand that this is business ownership and that they're running a business, it's going to be super impactful for them. So what is the future of the industry? The future of the industry is that the agent is the brand and not the brand backing, that you're going to have to stop taking money from them at a certain point in time, because being a business owner, you're going to be forced to run a P&L. And when you start looking at a P&L and getting an understanding of how much money you're giving the house, you're going to start making better business decisions, period. And that's no disrespect to the dependent model. It just is what it is. But at the end of the day, as these teams become more powerful, they're going to say, why am I giving this much money to the house when I can do a brochure on my phone? Right? So the industry is now, again, the business owner part of the real estate industry is going to start forcing and pressuring these dependent models to adapt and to make business decisions based on what's better for them, and meaning the agent, and that's going to be a capping model eventually, or a fee-based model, because they're being taught how to run businesses.
That makes sense. It's an interesting concept. Yeah, and that's where it's going. It makes sense.
Correct.
So interesting. Fascinating stuff. That's Livian. When I heard about that concept, I was intrigued by it, and now you know why. A roadmap to success, I guess, what I would say, and the future of the industry. So thanks to Livian Chicagoland for being here with us today. And another edition of Real Talk with Dean Blamas. I looked over there. And another edition of Real Talk with Dean Vlamas. All right.